It was a time in my life when my world revolved around college basketball. Being part of a Division I NCAA team demanded an immense amount of time, energy, and dedication. Constant travel to different cities and states for games and practices made it hard to maintain a stable personal life. During this period, I also found myself spiraling into a dangerous habit of drug and alcohol use. Looking back, I can see that I was using these substances as a way to cope with the stress, pressure, and emotional turmoil that came with being a student athlete. It was a path I didn't fully understand the consequences of at the time, and it led me down a dark road. Amidst all this chaos, my girlfriend cheated on me. The pain and betrayal I felt were overwhelming, and I made a decision to make her regret it. I became fixated on the idea of revenge, wanting to inflict on her the same hurt I felt. This desire for payback consumed me, and it was a feeling I couldn't let go of for a long time. Years later, after hitting rock bottom due to my addiction, I found the strength to get sober and joined a recovery program. It was a turning point in my life, a moment when I realized the destructive path I had been on. It also allowed me to reflect on the character defect that had grown from those earlier events. Before all of this, I had been a good kid who had never been in trouble, but the combination of addiction, betrayal, and the desire for revenge pushed me into a dark place, one that I'm still working to overcome. Writing them, but rather an attempt to understand the flaws in my character that led me down such a destructive path. My upbringing was incredibly challenging, but I managed to hold on to a fundamental kindness in my spirit when it came to interacting with others. I always try to do the right thing and take the high road in most situations. When it came to dating, I knew that people could cheat in relationships, but I used to believe it was something that happened to others because they didn't handle relationships the way I did. I had this belief that infidelity would never be a part of my dating journey because I considered myself a 5-star boyfriend and had high standards when it came to choosing the women I dated. Looking back, I realized I was incredibly naive and had an unhealthy level of confidence in myself. Like any guy in his early 20s, I guess I had a certain level of arrogance. Now let's get to the build-up of the story. I was in my junior year at university and had been single for about a year after my high school girlfriend and I finally broke up after 3 years together. I saw that relationship as my learning experience, and I thought I knew exactly what to look for in my next girlfriend. I was determined to find the woman I would likely marry and start my future with. Even though I was young and thought I had life all figured out, there was this girl at my school who caught my eye, and we'll call her Lisa. I spotted Lisa at various places around the collegiate athletic facility, or university teams trained in head locker rooms. She was a standout on the track team, and I couldn't help but be impressed by her skills. Our university's athletic teams often had parties, and I knew that the next time I saw her at one of these gatherings, I would introduce myself and try to strike up a conversation. Finally, the moment came. I saw Lisa had one of these parties. And as we passed each other on the stairs, we made a contact. She smiled at me, and I decided to seize the opportunity. We struck up a conversation. And after some back and forth, we exchanged numbers. Our relationship started in that classic American-style flirting manner where we constantly hinted at our interest in each other, but played it cool to avoid revealing the depth of our feelings. We exchanged texts, dropping hints, and keeping things intriguing for weeks as we slowly progressed in our budding relationship. In those days, Lisa was on a break from her then-boyfriend, who happened to be a popular player on the football team. She eventually decided to leave him completely to be with me. Looking back, that should have raised red flags, but my hubris was blinding me. In my mind, her choosing me over him gave me a sense of superiority. I was excelling in sports and I foolishly believed that if she was willing to leave her previous boyfriend for me, then she would never leave me for someone else. I was utterly clueless looking back on it now. I can't emphasize enough how deeply infatuated I was with Lisa. I was addicted to her presence, and there was that surreal feeling of I can't believe my crush is actually into me too. I was so wrapped up in my feelings for her that I missed numerous red flags. Despite this, our relationship was progressing at lightning speed. And I never took the time to truly assess why I liked her so much. Fast forward about 8 months and we became officially together. Lisa had her own athlete's dorm room, but I, being a couple of years older, was working full-time during the summers and part-time during the school year while maintaining my own apartment near campus. Essentially, we were living together. She would even stay at my place when I was out of town, which was quite frequent, due to our in-season commitments that had us traveling across the country. Lisa and I were deeply in love. No doubt about it. However, as the season came to an end, I had planned 2 massive back-to-back parties, one for my teammate's birthday on Friday night, and another for my own birthday on Saturday night. These parties just happened to fall one day after the other and, luckily, on a Friday-Saturday night. On the Friday night of my teammate's birthday party, Lisa and I got drunk and had some unprotected sex. Lisa kept a period tracking calendar app on her phone. She would mark down when we had unprotected sex so she could keep track and be prepared if she missed her period. Athletes often experience irregular periods, which was not uncommon for her. In my drunken state, I thought was a good idea for her to mark down that we had unprotected sex to keep track of her cycle. So in the early hours of the morning, when we were both in that tired, 5 a.m. kind of drunk state, I asked her to put it in her calendar. She started to doze off while holding her unlocked phone, so I decided to take it upon myself to input the information into her calendar. Throughout our entire relationship, Lisa went through my computer and phoned me constantly. She was very insecure and always had her suspicions, but I didn't care that she was doing this all the time. She never found anything because I never did shady stuff. Looking back at this, it's an obvious red flag I missed because I truly believed that she would never cheat on me. This isn't one of those stories where I went through her phone looking for something and subsequently found it. In this case, I was innocently trying to navigate a period calendar while I was drunk, and I wasn't suspicious at all. When I looked at the period calendar app on Lisa's phone, I saw all kinds of little markers on different days of each month. Each marker was a different color, so I opened up one to see what the color coding meant. I saw that red was obviously for her period. And then there were black markers that showed when she had unprotected sex. My heart sank into my stomach. This calendar was peppered with black markers, and it looked like a checkerboard with only a handful of red pieces left. There were black markers on dates when I was in a different city playing basketball. I proceeded to open all of the black markers going back for our entire relationship. We did not have unprotected sex very often, maybe once or twice a month. She had written the names of the guy she had unprotected sex with in the notes section of the black markers. There was a total of 4 guys throughout the entirety of our relationship that she allowed to penetrate her without protection. Some months, there were almost a dozen of those black markers, and sometimes there were 2 in one day. Looking back on this, it was a painful and eye-opening revelation. I couldn't help but wonder if there were more unlisted men that I didn't see, because she clearly only kept track of the guys in time she had unprotected sex. In almost every story, I hear of infidelity. It involves the discovery of text messages being informed by a friend or the classic coming home early and catching your partner red-handed. I, on the other hand, discovered a well-documented ledger of almost every time she cheated and had unprotected sex. Among the 4 guys I discovered, one of them was her ex, the guy she originally left to date me. Cheating on me with him was a common occurrence. There was also some other unknown guy she was clearly sleeping with regularly. The last 2 fellows looked to be just a one-time thing, but again, these markers were just for the time she had sex without a condom. So who knows what the true story was there? I sobered up real quick. I proceeded to look through Lisa's text and calls and found nothing incriminating. However, at the time, Android phones had a folder where you could see deleted texts, but not the contents of the messages. She had thousands of deleted texts and calls, but I couldn't see what they said. I saw the numbers and did a quick Facebook search matching one with her ex, in addition to something like half a dozen other random dudes. The worst part was when I found out that 2 of my teammates were on that list. And one of them I was actually pretty close with. I just put the phone down after a few minutes. The evidence was overwhelming, and the more I seemed to look at the phone, the more my insights began to hurt. I felt so defeated. I can't fully describe the feeling, but I'm sure anyone reading this who has caught a significant other cheating knows what I'm talking about. I felt so stupid for trusting her and having no suspicions of her. I couldn't stop thinking about how I regretted all the times that I had an opportunity to cheat, remained faithful to Lisa. I felt like an idiot for not cheating on her when I could have. My loyalty felt like a waste. I know it sounds ridiculous and irrelevant to the fact that she was unfaithful, but I think I obsess over that because if I had cheated as well, I wouldn't have heard so much in that moment. All I could think about was how much I was hurt, and I would do anything to not feel the pain and embarrassment anymore. I wondered if I was the only one who thought this way after catching their partner cheating. I was curious about this as I proceeded to leave my apartment and go for a long walk. I had never felt the emotions that were coming up and didn't know how to process them. My ego felt like it was literally dismantled in front of me. I wasn't sure what to do, and I was too embarrassed to tell anyone. My sadness quickly turned to anger, and I knew I was going to get my payback. I just didn't know how yet. I was seething with rage and wanted to make sure she never recovered from this. My roommate and teammate, my best friend, was the one sleeping on the couch in my living room. We'll call in Bono, an Eastern European kid who stood 7 feet tall and had a Russian demeanor. His real-life name was equally ridiculous, hence, the nickname. Well, Bono called me shortly after I started my walk. I answered, and he asked where I was. I asked him to keep this between us and told him what had happened. He stayed on the phone and went into my room. I heard him in his Russian accent yelling at her. Yo, Yuchido. Then I faintly heard her say something in the background, and he yelled at her to get out of the apartment. After some scuffling, Bono got back on the line and said, Yo, Shigen, come back, and let's talk. I headed back home, and Bono and I went over what had happened. Things didn't get sappy because we're both complete alpha males who come from cultures where men don't cry, and neither of us really knew what to say or do in this situation. He made his best attempt to be there for me and said, tonight is your birthday. We're gonna get messed up and find you some new company. Forget her. I never liked her anyway. Oh, yeah. I almost forgot. It was my birthday. Me and Bono went out for breakfast, and I was still a little drunk. My phone was blowing up with calls and texts from Lisa. I told her I saw everything on her phone and that I couldn't stand to speak with her or look at her. She kept trying to convince me to let her come to my birthday party. But I made it clear that I didn't want her there. She was clearly concerned about exactly what Bono had suggested to me earlier. Lisa's entire reputation and popularity revolved around the fact that she was dating me. I think most people didn't like her in the first place and put up with her because we were together. She knew that if I acted single at my birthday party and she didn't show up, everyone would know something was asked you. I think Lisa was more worried about being embarrassed than our relationship. I don't remember much of what happened that night, but one of my friends sent me a little package for my birthday from California filled with some really good weed, hash, moon rocks, some pills, and the devil's dandruff. I proceeded to do a glorious swan dive into an intoxicated oblivion. All I remember is sitting on my chair at the pregame for my party. There were 2 girls sitting on the arms of the chair, and I still have a photo of that moment I remember it vividly. We were preparing to head out to the nightclub. The booze and drugs were the only things that made me feel normal. I had my sunglasses on and clearly had that happy loaded grin on my face, but the longer you look at the photo of me in that chair, you can tell I was hiding a huge amount of hurt. Sitting on that chair, the cocktail of drugs started to take effect. This was the first time I ever used substances not to party, but to feel better, to make me feel normal. I remember thinking that I wanted to feel this way for the rest of my life. I was never going to hurt like that ever again, and I was using drugs to escape from the pain. I felt like I had control, and no one could hurt me again. How ironic that turned out to be. Years down the line, I told my teammates and friends that Lisa and I were done. When they asked why she wasn't at the party, I didn't tell them why, though. I also didn't show them that I was affected by it in any way and just played it cool, trying to focus everyone on the party ahead of us. Now let's get to the payback. So this is one of those payback stories where it was only half planned. I knew I wanted to get payback on Lisa for hurting me so much, but I kind of just improvised as opportunities came up. My original kind spirit had died at my birthday on that chair, and all my morals went out the window. I had never cheated in relationships, and therefore, I believed I would never get cheated on. I realized now how dumb that was, but that's what I thought at the time. I didn't care what collateral damage I caused as long as my mission to hurt Lisa as much as possible was accomplished. So I continued every day of my life with this new selfish mindset. I was sitting at my computer later that next week, skimming Facebook when I saw the profile of one of her track teammates on my feed. That's when I had my first vengeful idea. I decided I was going to attempt to get her teammates to bite the bait that I was about to cast out into the water. Though I didn't have proof that she hooked up with my teammates, she was clearly trying to hide conversations between them. So I was going to see how many people who were close to where I could entice. Luckily, I had more options than she had when cheating on me. A women's track team is much larger than a men's basketball team and also much better looking. Lisa's teammate, I originally spotted on my Facebook, had a boyfriend, but I thought clearly everyone cheats. Let's see if it's true. I proceeded to do the little flirty social media dance with her. You know, the one where I liked a couple of her photos, she liked a couple of mine back, and I shot her a message. Bam! She was in my house in my bed about a week later. I proceeded to do something similar with other teammates of hers, all on her 4x4 relay team, coincidentally. 2 of the 3 girls, I passionately hugged head boyfriends and subsequently cheated on them with me, which gave me some real mixed emotions. It stroked my broken ego and also made me bitter and sad, giving me one of those women and crap. None of them are loyal attitudes. This is such a typical story of how, while fighting monsters, I became a monster myself. This actually became my go-to strategy because it accomplished 2 things in my messed up mind. It exposed to cheater. But more importantly, if they were willing to cheat on their boyfriends, they would, be more secretive about it. Which meant the drama that would ensue when it came out would be elevated. And it made me feel better about Lisa cheating because it proved it wasn't me that was the problem. It was women that were the problem. I know it's messed up, but that's what I thought back then. I started to collect something from every girl that I hooked up with, like a bra, a pair of panties, or some jewelry, etc. Not for some creepy reason, but this is important later as it was a part of my plan. Sometimes, I didn't even have to try. One girl left a pair of very distinguishable shoes. I knew Lisa would know whose shoes they were. They belonged to the girl that Lisa's ex-boyfriend rebounded with after Lisa and him broke up, which highly upset her because it was her friend. Now it would upset her more because that same girl slept with both of her ex-boyfriends. I especially tried to collect items if it was something that I knew Lisa could distinguish, like a sweater from the women's track team with her teammate's name on it. After some time, I had collected a boatload of crap. After a couple of months or so, one of Lisa's teammates' boyfriends found out about me and his girlfriend, and it started a big, beautiful, dramatic explosion of a series of events with her and her teammates. This led to all of them finding out about each other promiscuity, and the drama was massive. Even their coaches had to get involved, and it got so bad that the athletic PR team had put massive posters of me all over campus that same week promoting the next game. Some of the posters took up the entire side of buildings, so Lisa and her friends had to see me all over campus every day while this drama was erupting all around them. I felt like a triumphant dictator. It was glorious and pathetic, all at the same time. Their coach even proceeded to have a serious meeting with the compliance department and my team's coaches. My coach has literally laughed at her, saying this seems like an internal issue, but UP hasn't done anything illegal or broken any school policy. So there's nothing we can do. This infuriated the women's track coach. Their team had fallen apart and their national ranking began to plummet. Then Lisa's coach even got in trouble for being caught tearing down some of the smaller posters of me on campus in raging temper tantrums. I loved all of it, and I continued to add fuel to the fire, posting photos of me with girls, smiling, being happy every chance I could on Facebook and Instagram. But under it all, I was bitter. I was so deep into my new mindset that I had already forgotten the kind-hearted, naive kid I used to be. I hated my old self because I let some girl immaculate me. I was so full of self-pity, and looking back at it, it's depressing. No one really knew, though, because I played the cool guy attitude in front of people. I was consumed by anger and a burning desire for revenge during that time. I engaged in behavior that I now recognize as destructive and harmful. I manipulated and deceived people, causing chaos and pain in the process. Looking back, I can see that my actions were driven by a deep sense of hurt and betrayal from my relationship with Lisa. I was hurting, and I wanted her to feel the same pain I was experiencing. I wanted her to know that she had messed up by betraying me the way she did. In my mind, it was all her fault, and she had unleashed this fury of chaos upon herself. I took my revenge to extreme lengths. I pretended to be interested in other girls on her team, passionately hugging them, and then moving on without a second thought. I even went after girls who weren't directly connected to Lisa, but were just around her in daily life, like her classmates, and even her own family. I flirted with her sister, who was married with a child, and almost succeeded until her father intervened and put a stop to it. As my actions escalated, I wanted Lisa to know that I was everywhere, a constant reminder of how she had hurt me. In my mind, she should never have messed with me like that. Lisa's life began to unravel. She had to take an extended medical leave due to depression and mental health issues stemming from the whole situation. She became suicidal, lost weight rapidly, and looked extremely unhealthy. While I was inflicting pain on her, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction and power. I had already caused more damage than she did to me, but I couldn't stop. I was addicted to the feeling of revenge and the illusion of control it gave me. During this period, I spent zero time processing my own emotions or trying to move on from what had happened. All I wanted was more payback, and it consumed me completely. After weeks of ignoring Lisa's texts and calls, she finally got a hold of me by showing up to my apartment unannounced late at night. She was there to pick up some stuff she had left when she lived there, but she was no longer staying on campus due to her medical leave and was now with her parents, who lives nearby. I told her I would bring her stuff to her parents' house that weekend, but I couldn't let her in because I had company over, though it wasn't one of her teammates or friends, unfortunately. I then proceeded to take all the items I had collected from all the girls over the weeks, probably about 8 or 9 things from different girls, including her teammates, and threw their belongings into big black trash bags along with Lisa's stuff. I took the bags to her house and called Lisa's dad to let him know that I left her stuff on his porch. Me and Lisa's dad actually got along really well, and he even took my side after Lisa and I broke up. However, after all these events transpired, he obviously had a negative opinion of me. After I got off the phone with Lisa's dad, I received a call from Lisa. I answered because I wanted to hear her reaction to having all these other girls' belonging mixed in with hers. She was sobbing uncontrollably, and it sounded like that half-crying, half-mumbling thing people do when they are hysterical. She wasn't even angry. She was desperately begging me to stop my tyrannical behavior. I just smiled and bashed in the glory of hearing her hurt. I responded, "Why were there other guys in our relationship? You mix them into our relationship like I mixed other girls' crap into your crap." I thought it was a perfect little ironic metaphor and felt proud of myself for it. Facepalm. I later found out from one of Lisa's friends who knew she was cheating on me during her relationship that Lisa was convinced I was the one cheating on her because I was always out of town. During our relationship, I had legitimate reasons to be out of town due to my basketball commitments. I made an effort to maintain contact with Lisa despite my busy schedule. Her suspicions about my fidelity seemed to stem from insecurities or excuses to protect herself from the consequences of her own actions. Months later, when I bumped into Lisa at the physical therapy center in our athlete facility building, I saw it as another opportunity for revenge. I pretended to want to rekindle the relationship, and after some hesitation, she fell for it. However, what followed was not a healthy relationship, but more of a controlling and manipulative situation. I forbade her from having male friends, going out with her girlfriends, and demanded access to all her accounts and location. Amid all this, I wasn't faithful at all, and it became clear to her when she found out about me sleeping with a girl in one of her classes. Our breakup was nasty, and I told her that she finally knew what it felt like to be in my shoes when we were last dating. For me, it was just another chance to hurt her, and I took it. After our last breakup, we didn't speak for years. I graduated from university and moved to Central America. About a year after I moved, in roughly 2 years since we last spoke, she messaged me out of the blue. At this point in my life, I had spiraled into a dark and destructive lifestyle, heavily involved in drugs and illegal activities. Despite my own choices, I continued to blame her for the person I had become, failing to take responsibility for my own bitter and immoral nature. I hadn't been in another relationship since ours, and I found it challenging to trust women in any capacity. Even after all those years had passed, I saw her message as another opportunity to hurt her. We started talking as friends, but it quickly turned flirty over Facebook Messenger. Keep in mind that there were multiple countries, states, and an ocean separating us at this point. I was planning a trip back to my old university to visit some friends, but I told her a different story. I explained that I was moving back to the city for a new job I had just been offered. We agreed to meet up when I got back to see if there was anything worth salvaging between us. I put on my best acting performance, trying to seem like I had put our past behind us. However, deep down, I was just as vengeful as I had been years ago. She was in her last year at university, and I made the trip back to the USA. We met at a coffee shop when I arrived, and we spent the entire night together. From her perspective, it appeared that we had moved past our differences in the past and there was a chance to work things out. What she didn't know was that I had no intention of moving back, contrary to what I had told her. After hooking up a few times and spending 2 days together without mentioning my departure, I packed my things and left, getting back on a plane headed for Central America. Blocking her on all my social media and communication outlets was my final act of revenge. This time, I could only imagine what happened to her. I disappeared after she believed I had moved back, ready to give our relationship another try. However, unlike my previous acts of vengeance, this one wasn't as satisfying. My drug habit and destructive lifestyle only got worse over the years. 3 years later, I found myself hospitalized, and almost died due to my extended drug use. I hadn't been sober for a full 24 hours since that fateful day when I discovered the period calendar. Looking back, as much pain as I might have caused her with my eventual actions, my new identity that consumed my old one was tainted with a dark spirit at its core. I honestly believe that I did more harm to myself with my actions, leaving me down a path where I lost all sense of morals. While I spent the entirety of this story recounting how I sought payback from my ex's cheating, I now realize that I should have spent equal energy healing myself from the incident. If anyone reading this is experiencing the pain that comes with cheating, a good payback story may provide some momentary satisfaction, but I hope you don't make the same mistake I did. It's essential to spend more time healing yourself from the hurt and moving past it, because payback won't heal you. It's a separate journey that can distract you from putting yourself back together. Fortunately, I got sober, and I've been cleaned for over 4 years now. I even had another girlfriend cheat on me before I got sober. But this time, I didn't seek payback. I focused on healing, changing, and investing my time and energy into myself, which was far more satisfying than any revenge. Now I am married, approaching 2 years with a sober woman, and I have a good life. I have a dream job and a dream marriage. I want to thank everyone who read this, and I'm sorry if it wasn't well written. I rarely write like this, but I've never told the full story in such detail before. I found immense value in writing it all out, and I hope that sharing my experiences can serve as a cautionary tale about the destructive nature of seeking revenge and the importance of focusing on personal healing and growth. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please consider subscribing our channel as it helps and motivates us to continue our work.